Hello everyone, I welcome you to my YouTube channel Professor Civil Mandal. Here I speak about civil engineering and you will find my various video lectures regarding various topics of civil engineering over here. So this is the first video lecture related to the RCC, or I should say design of RCC. RCC stands for, as you know, it's reinforced cement concrete, RCC, and this first chapter is dealing with the basic concepts related to the RCC or its design. So we will learn some of the basic concepts related to RCC in this chapter. And so before going into that, I would say that, as you know, civil engineering is a vast thing and we have various other sub branches of civil engineering when you consider like structural engineering or transportation engineering, geotechnical engineering, water resource engineering, environmental engineering, construction management. And so whenever we are taking into consideration the structural engineering part, so structural engineering part is divided into two, that is, first is the analysis part and second is the design part. So analysis part is that part wherein we are dealing with the theoretical part and the mechanisms related to it, and the design part on the other hand is actually the practical application of those what we are studying in the analysis part. So as you can see, analysis is having two subjects, namely the strength of material and the structural analysis. So subjects like strength of material and structural analysis give us the basic idea about the various mechanisms that are possible in a structure, and these are the two subjects likewise where we study the analysis part of the structural engineering. Next, moving on to the design part, we study the design in three subjects, mainly RCC design, the PCC design or PSC design, that is the pre-stressed concrete design, or the steel design. In design of steel structure, pre-stressed concrete and reinforced cement concrete. In these design subjects, we actually come into the practicality of this particular theories or the mechanisms which we study in strength of material and structural analysis. So in strength of material and structural analysis, we are dealing with the equilibrium, compressibility and energy, and stuffs like safety, serviceability, durability, economy, aesthetics, these are dealt in the design part. So moving on, so let's talk about these things, these factors which we consider in the design. So these five, you can say that these are five factors which we are actually considering when we are designing a particular structure. So first thing is the safety, that the structure should be safe and safe structure with proper factor of safety, that is FOS. FOS is the factor of safety, means dealing, this is actually one parameter which says that how much safe a structure should be. Like suppose I am supposed to have a particular beam which is carrying, suppose I am designing it to carry for 10 kilonewton. No, the code says that we will go for something higher, like we will design it for 15 kilonewton and we will say people that it can take up to 10 kilonewton. So in this way you are making it 1.5 times safe. So this factor which is 1.5, that is 15 with respect to 10, this 1.5 is actually the factor of safety, and this is the very important parameter whenever we are designing a particular structure. Moving on to the next is the serviceability. Serviceability is the next thing, that is that the structure which we are making should be giving us the meaningful service. So the meaningful service must be provided by the structure. In contrary, that suppose I have a beam, this beam should be able to take the load of the slab and corresponding live loads which are actually coming onto it. So if a beam is not able to make sure that it is able to take the load of a slab, or it is able to be good in the tensile strength or the tension or the compression, whatever it with it is going on, if it is able to ensure that, then we can say that this particular beam is serviceable. Also, on the other hand, if you are having a beam which is very large depth, and whenever you are entering inside a room, your head is almost getting obstructed by that particular beam, or even your visibility is being obstructed by that particular beam, even the presence of any light or a fan is their function is also obstructed by that particular beam. So we cannot say that that particular beam is serviceable. It is not providing us the good service. Moving on, durability is the next factor. That is, should be able to sustain the loading, and durability without safety or serviceability has no meaning. First of all, let's know about the meaning of durability. The durability is the ability of a particular element or a system or a structure to sustain the loading. So means, if my beam which I have designed, suppose 10 kilonewton or 15 kilonewton, whatever shall be the load on it, it should be able to take that particular load. Alright, it should be able to ensure that it is taking that particular load and sustainably, like it can take the load for a prolonged period. Like it's not like that within few days a beam will be getting collapsed and our design will be a failure. It's not like that. Our design should be able to ensure that the particular beam is taking load for a longer duration, like 50 years, 100 years. That beam should have a proper lifetime alongside taking that particular load. So here comes the factor durability. And again, just moving on to the second line, that is, durability without safety or serviceability has no meaning. It says that suppose even if the structure is durable, if it has not got the proper safety, that is, the proper factor of safety is not maintained, and even if it is not serviceable, then therefore, of course, we are having no meaning. This beam has no particular use. Economy is a very important factor. Like, the beam should be cost effective without affecting the above three factors. So no, it's not like that it is hurting my economy. I am not able to provide that amount of money or that amount of budget I don't have for this particular thing. So I am reducing the safety, serviceability and durability, and my beam is not able to meet the above three factors, is safety, serviceability and durability. So if my beam is not able to ensure the above three factors, so providing that economy is again has got no use. So the economy should be in such a way that the particular structural element must be cost effective, and alongside that the proper economy, along with the proper economy, safety, serviceability and durability shall be maintained. Next part is the aesthetics, that the beam should be, or the structure should be beautiful, and in turn it requires huge investment. Suppose you are going to make it look better, you are going to provide some design or provide some architectural design that will give it some nice looks, or it will give a good appearance. So there we are dealing with the factor aesthetics, like, and then it will also imbibe huge investment over it. So let us consider a beam and think if it can satisfy the above conditions. So what's your job right now? You try to think about a beam, a particular beam, basic beam, what you can see above in your towards the roof side, this particular beam, and you just consider that this particular five factors, and see whether your beam meets these five factors or not. Just in case, see if it is safe or not, that it should be taking the particular load. And safe means you are just alright, that yeah, you can say that if you are going towards the roof slab over which is over that particular beam, then, and you are actually feeling safe, you know that this won't collapse, so therefore it is providing you the safety. Again, if it is serviceable, you know, yeah, it is taking the load of that particular slab, and also you can move inside your room without getting affected by that beam, and it is also not affecting the light or the source of the fan which is there inside your room. Durability, it has been sure, if you are sure to say that whatever might be the age of your building, that should be the age of your beam, and for a prolonged period it is giving you that particular strength, it is ensuring you the proper safety and serviceability, then therefore you can say that this beam is particularly very much durable. And also you need to know if whether it has given you the perfect economy or not, whether it was cost effective to you or not. And then finally you see that whether that beam looks good or not, whether that beam is distorted or not somewhere, or it is some other way, it is been given some other investment and it looks good, given a good architectural look, then you can say that aesthetic part is also under consideration. Next is the cement concrete. So what is a cement concrete? A cement concrete is a mixture of binding material, cement, fine aggregates, sand, coarse aggregate, water, and admixture if required in proper proportion to achieve the concrete of desired properties at fresh and hardened state. Let's highlight this sentence. So a cement concrete should be made up of some binding material which we actually use find in the cement. Cement works as our binding material, and next comes the fine aggregate, that is our sand, coarse aggregate, that is the stones that we use, next is the water, and admixture if it is required in some certain proportion to achieve the concrete of desired properties at fresh state. So the concrete should be providing the desired properties. What are those desired properties? That is those safety, serviceability, and durability, whatever are those, and also that concrete should be providing a particular strength. That particular cement concrete should be giving you some particular strength which actually gives you the idea about that grade of the concrete. About that grade I'll be talking it in the later section. So whenever we are considering these mixes, that is I am mixing this cement, how much fine aggregate I should mix, how much coarse aggregate I should mix, or admixture or water, these things actually depend on various proportions. So depending on this proportion, we are dividing it into the concrete mix of first nominal mix. Nominal mix is one type of mix. Next is the design mix. So the nominal mix is totally based upon the experience, and the mixing may be by weight or by volume. By weight is preferable, and the water quantity is not fixed and is provided as per site requirement. Nominal mix is allowed for M5 to M20. So nominal mix, as you can see, it is totally based upon one person's experience. So how much he knows, say like just by guessing power, he can say that this much amount of cement, this much amount of aggregates, this much amount of water will be sufficient for giving me the concrete of my desired properties. In turn, he actually doesn't depend on some other ratios, but the code has fixed some certain ratios. In this particular table you can see regarding 5 different grades of concrete, that is from M5 to M20, and you can also see that nominal mix is allowed from this M5 to M20. Within these grades of concretes only you can allow the nominal mix, that is based on your experience, and that is totally depend upon your good guessing power and your idea regarding the amount or the proportions of the various constituents. So look onto this table. This is on the left column. You are seeing the grade of the concrete, that is M5, M5, M7.5, M10, M15 and M20, and the various nominal mix proportions are shown in the right hand side column. So how are these proportions are made? It is cement is to fine aggregate is to coarse aggregate. Fa and Ca stand for fine aggregate and coarse aggregate. So the cement is to Fa is to Ca is actually given by 1:5:10 for M5, and similarly for 7.5, 10, 15 and 20 we have 4 other different ratios. So for the 5 grades of concretes we have 5 different proportions which we actually use to make them. But when we come to the design mix, we actually go for some particular parameters. We consider some things, some factors, and then we do some certain calculations, and finally we fix the proportion for that particular grade of concrete. And in this nominal mix is allowed for M5 to M20, as you can see, and for M20 it is 1:1.5:1:3. For M15 1:2:4. So these are the two mostly used grades of concrete, M15 and M20. Moving on to the design mix, it is based on the calculation as per IS 10262/2009. So this is the particular code which gives us the idea regarding the design mix, and all the procedures, necessary steps are given in this particular code. And this proportioning must be by weight. So the proportioning will be done with respect to the weight, and the quantity of water is also fixed. The quantity of water, whatever you are using, will also be fixed. It's like that whenever you are making the design mix, whenever you are doing the calculations, you are actually getting the content of water or the water to cement ratio, and in turn you know the amount of cement which you are using, and thus you know the amount of water that you will be using for this particular grade of concrete. So you can say that you know that the quantity of the water will be fixed for this particular design mix. Next is the design mix is allowed for M10 to M100. So for concretes up to the grade of M100, starting from M10, you can say that you can use the design mix. So next, whenever you are making a concrete actually has two different states. First is the fresh concrete, that is just you have made the concrete, just you have mixed the particular that cement, that particular binding material, the aggregates and water, and whatever result you will be having after proper mixing, that will be the fresh concrete. And next, after the fresh concrete, we have the hardened concrete. That is, after a certain duration of time, that concrete will be achieving some particular strength, and that concrete will be hard to be broken, and it will be the hardened, or you can say that it is the almost the finished portion of the concrete, and it solely depends on the final setting time of the cement. So regarding this initial and final setting time of the cement, you can know about it in the material testing laboratory practicals, or from the building material subject. You can know about this initial and final setting time of the cement. Till then you can browse for the internet for the definitions, and this final setting time is the sole reason which gives us the hardened concrete. So let's first talk about the fresh concrete. Fresh concrete is dependent mainly upon the workability. Like, workability is a key feature that should be present in a fresh concrete. So what does workability mean? Workability actually means ease to work with. Means how easily are you able to work with that particular concrete. Like, suppose you are making a mix of cement, the fine aggregate, coarse aggregate and water, or if the admixture is present, and the concrete should be easy to be mixed. Like, it should be, the person who is mixing the concrete should be able to mix it easily, and he shouldn't face any difficulty while mixing it. So if he is easily able to mix that particular concrete, the constituents will be distributed in an even manner, in an even way, in a proper way. The constituents, that is the cement, the aggregates and the water will be properly distributed in the whole concrete. It will be actually a homogeneous mixture, and thus this particular concrete which has got good workability, that is the mixing has been done properly or easily, or the mixing has been done with a particular level of ease, so that concrete will yield to be a good concrete later on. That it might provide us the good amount of strength which we are expecting from it. So workability is the most important property of fresh concrete, which is simply defined as the ease to work with. So for workability, we actually use three types of tests, that is the slump test, the compacting factor test, and the VB test. So these three tests are actually used for this particular workability of the concrete, and this test give us the idea how much workable a particular concrete is. So based on the degree of the workability, we have given various uses to some kinds of concrete with respect to how much workable they are, and this workability is totally found by the help of the slump cone test, the compacting factor test, and the VB test. So this test you can learn about them again in that material testing laboratory practicals, and or in the building material theory subject. So the concretes which have a very low degree of workability, we don't consider the slump which is forming in it. Actually, this type of concretes have the minimum possible amount of slump which cannot be accounted through the slump cone test, but we will have a particular compacting factor for this and a proper VB time. So the concretes having very low degree of workability are used for road construction and shallow sections. Low degree of workability will have a slump of 25 to 75 centimeter and a compacting factor of 0.8 to 0.85 and VB time of 5 to 10 seconds. Note these slumps are given in millimeters. 25 to 75 is the millimeter of the slump, of that particular slump that concrete will be having. So if the concrete has a low degree of workability, we will be using it for mass concreting and lightly reinforced section. So in which type of concretes we are going to say these are having medium workability? If the slump is 50 to 100 and the compacting factor is 0.85 to 0.92 and the VB time is 2 to 5 seconds. For concretes with high and very high degree of workability, you can note that we don't have any VB time, but this for the high degree of degree of workability, we have a slump of like 100 to 150 mm. It's like most of it will be totally slumped down. The cone will be slumping down, and we will have a huge amount of this slump height. And again, if you go for the degree of workability, which the concrete which has very high degree of workability, the slump we cannot again find out. Like whole of the concrete will be totally falling down and we won't get any slump value. So such concretes are used for piling and trimmy pipe concreting. However, we can have a compacting factor for 0.92 to above for the very high degree of workability concretes. So here is one note about the trimmy pipe concreting. So in this trimmy pipe concreting, it's one of the most practical thing, and it is used in constructions of in the commercial scale, and concrete is inserted through a thin sheath inside the bore tube. After the concrete is hardened, the tube is jolted to break the sheath. So you can see this is the trimmy pipe, this is the trimmy, and the concrete is supplied from this particular supplied by skip pump or chute. Some pump like thing will be there, or a chute will be there, that will be supplying us the concrete, and there in this pipe the concrete will be supplied up to the bottom. Suppose this is the bed of some river and we have water over this. This Trimi pipe method of construction are used for making, suppose if you want to make piles for bridges in some water body. So this is the way of construction where we use one pipe and we are injecting some amount of concrete, and this concrete is actually supplied by keeping it in a rubber like bag, rubber like sheath inside this particular Trimi pipe. And after we are filling this thing with concrete, we actually give a certain jolt, so that some certain jerk, so that the rubber sheath breaks and we have the hardened concrete settled. And at the end, when the concrete gets its hardened state, we remove this pipe like thing, and thus we have the pile in front of us, and it can further be used for making bridges or some other construction on water bodies. So workability of concrete can be measured by slump cone test, compacting factor test, VB test, and there's one more test, that is the flow test, which we haven't accounted in the table, but these are the 4 tests which we use to determine the workability of concrete. Next is the hardened concrete. So after we have done the working with the fresh concrete. Suppose we have made this concrete and we are keeping it for 1 year, 2 years or 5 years or even 28 days suppose. So after the final setting time, the concrete is assumed to be hard and it keeps on gaining strength for very long time, that is 1 to 5 years. So this happens only after you have achieved the final setting time of that particular cement which you are using for making this concrete. So it brings us to 2 different strengths, that is the compressive strength of the cube and the characteristic compressive strength of the cube. So what is the compressive strength of the cube? It is the strength of the cube of side 150 mm, which we in general use in our labs, a cube with side 150 by 150 by 150, subjected to uniaxial compression after 28 days from casting. So you have made one cube of dimension 150 cross 150 cross 150 mm, and with after proper curing of 28 days you are providing an uniaxial compression, is just what we do in the compression testing machine, and you are able to get the particular strength at which that concrete collapses or breaks. So that gives us the idea of the compressive strength of that particular cube or that particular concrete. And next is the characteristic compressive strength of concrete, and it is the strength below which not more than 5% test results are expected to fail. So after you are getting the compressive strength of certain number of cubes, so if you are arranging them according to the amount of strength whatever you are getting, so when not more than 5% test results are expected to fail, that more than 5% of which will be not failing will be given, the rest will be given that particular characteristic compressive strength. Suppose for a particular cube you are getting a strength from 18 to 22. 22 is the highest possible strength of that particular grade of concrete cube, and 18 is the lowest one. And you are seeing that 19 is that particular compressive strength, and below which 5% of the cubes are falling. So you can say that 19 is that characteristic compressive strength of that particular cube, and remaining comes under the compressive strength of that cube. So this is the graph which we are showing, that suppose this is the frequency, that is the number of cubes which we are taking, and FCK is the characteristic compressive strength and FCM is the mean characteristic compressive of the strength. And if you are getting this type of curve, FCK, that is our characteristic compressive strength of the cube, which is given by FCK, So this FCK, below this 5% of the results fail. Here you can see in the graph. So it's one kind of, you can say this is a probability distribution function, and here at the end of the graph you have 5% of the results failing. So we can say that this particular strength is the FCK, or that is our characteristic compressive strength of the cube. FCM is the mean compressive strength, and this is given by this, and characteristic strength is given by this. This is represented by this amount of strength, and the difference between FCK and FCM is given by 1.65 sigma. So the area under this curve will be represented by this particular formula, that is FCM is equal to FCK plus KS, where K is equal to 1.65 for 5% definition, and for the different percent definitions we have the value of K's, that is infinite for 0%, for 5% we have 1.65, and for 50% we have 0. So for 5% we have 1.65, and that only we are using for this particular graph, and it is FCM is equal to FCK plus 1.65 S, where S is the standard deviation. So we have a particular question where uniaxial compression test results of 100 cubes are listed below like this, and we are asked to find the FCK. So let's try to solve this particular problem. So we are given this particular cube strengths, that is 26, 26.5, 26.5, and till starting from this till 42.5, according to questions we have 100 cubes. So total 100 number of cubes are there up to this 42.5. So 42.5, and you can see these are in increasing order. So the 42.5 is the ultimate strength, the maximum possible strength obtained from those total 100 number of cubes, and these are in increasing order. So for 5% definition we can say that the first 5 cubes, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 cubes up to 27.5 are coming under those 5% definition part, that is up to the characteristic concrete strength. So we can say that characteristic compressive strength is given by this 28. We'll be taking this just value above this 5% or the first 5 cubes, so that is 28. So as per definition we are taking 28 Newton per mm square, and since FCK is always designated in multiple of 5, so the answer should also be something like, suppose I have this 28 and the answer should be in multiple of 5, like we express concrete strength mostly in multiple of 5, so it will be either 25 or 30. So if I am going to 25, I don't have, this particular won't be possible because a cube with strength 25 I don't have in my list, but I have a list, I have 30 in my list. So if I consider 30, so below it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cubes will be falling, so which is actually greater than my 5%. So 8, having this 8 CK, so we cannot say that 30 Newton per mm square cannot be our FCK. So because so many cubes are there, like it should be 5%, and greater than 5% won't be allowed to us, so it should be somewhat less than equal to 5% for that particular 5% definition. So 30 can also not be taken. So our issue is that 25 we don't have in the list, and 30 we cannot take because it is more than 5%. So if I consider again this 25, again I am considering this 25 Newton per mm square, and let us consider that FCK is this. So there are test results, below it is 0. So actually below 25 there are no cubes. So less than 25 I have no cubes. I can say there are 0 cubes which are falling under less than 5%. So I can conclude the statement that for FCK equal to 25 Newton per mm square, I will say that less than 5%, 0 number of cubes are failing. So I can say that our test is so good that below, so 5%, the 5% strength of this particular thing I am taking as 25 Newton per mm square. It's because I have no other option. 30 will be higher, that is greater than 5. And if I take 25 Newton per mm square, which is actually not present in the list, so I will take up that particular 25 hypothetically, and I will say that below this less than 5% strength, 0 number of cubes are actually failing amongst all of the cubes. I hope everything is clear with that particular problem. If you are facing any kind of doubt, please do not hesitate to write in the comment section. So next is the characteristic compressive strength of concrete. So previously we were reading about the characteristic compressive strength of the cube, of a particular cube, and now we will define that particular strength for that particular concrete. So what is that? It is obtained by dividing characteristic strength, compressive strength of cube by the factor 1.5 to account for variation in shape of concrete other than cube. So other than cube, to make it actually a generalized factor, that this strength is particularly generalized for that particular concrete, I'll say that I will divide that particular strength that is obtained by that cube, I will divide that with factor 1.5, and the variation in the loading condition with it I will be considering also, and also just check that 1.5 here is not the partial factor of safety. So what is our sentence? That it is the characteristic compressive strength of the concrete is obtained by dividing characteristic compressive strength of the cube by factor 1.5 to account for variation in shape of concrete other than cube and variation in loading condition other than uniaxial compression. And let's highlight this one first. And other than this, 1.5 here is also not the partial factor of safety. So now we had a particular loading condition, that is we had uniaxial compressive strength, and apart from that we were conducting the test on a particular cube of particular dimension. So apart from the variation of the shape and size of that cube or other than anything other than cube, we want to generalize the strength for that particular concrete, particular grade of concrete. And also I will also have different other loading condition, like suppose in our test we were using only the compressive strength, but the cube can also be facing like forces like tensile strength and the flexure test. There are many tensile strength and the flexure strength. There are many other strength, many other forces or the many other stresses which a beam or a particular concrete element will be exposed to when it is in somewhat real life scenario. So we will consider that particular factor 1.5, like considering the ups and downs of that particular strength of the concrete. We will consider 1.5 and we will divide it with. So on dividing, let's see another thing. On dividing, we will have a strength actually lesser, somewhat lesser than what we were getting through the cubes. So we will be very much safe in accordance to what we are actually trying to obtain. So 1.5 is that particular factor which we will be dividing, and again note it down that 1.5 is not the partial factor of safety. So regarding partial factor of safety, we will be knowing it when we will be doing those designs, and we will be adopting that partial factor of safety for the particular element or the particular structure, and it will be having some different use. So this is not our partial factor of safety, this is just a factor to consider the other loading condition and the other shape of the concrete. So I guess I'll stop the video over here. Thank you, and please do not hesitate to write any kind of doubt in the comment section, whatever you are facing with. And this was about the first video regarding the basic concepts of RCC. In our next videos, we will also learn about various other concepts which we will need to know before proceeding on to the actual design of these various elements of an RCC structure. So we'll be coming on to various other topics in later 2-3 videos, and then we will be moving to the next part, that is the design part. Till then, thank you. Like and share my video. Also subscribe to the channel if you are new. Thank you.